The question this year is, could Europe survive without Russian gas? The answer to this question can be found in a piece of news that has gone almost unnoticed, but is very important. Just a day before Putin entered Ukraine, he had this meeting.
Russian-Azerbaijani presidents to meet in Moscow on Tuesday.
And I know, many of you will be thinking, what does the president of Azerbaijan have to do with this story? Well, actually, a lot. In today's video, we're going to tell you about two countries that until now were practically unknown, but are likely to be talked about a lot in the future. But let's get back to the question that we said at the beginning. Can Europe really stop buying natural gas from Russia? By now, I think you all know that Europe needs Russian gas to survive. More than 40% of the natural gas consumed in the entire European Union comes from Russia. And, with or without war in Ukraine, everything indicates that the Kremlin wants to keep selling. In fact, at the time of making this video, with Russian tanks on the streets of Kyiv, Gazprom pipelines were still pumping gas to the European Union. And I know what you're thinking right now. What economic sanctions can we put on Russia if we keep buying gas from them? As long as Europe remains the main buyer, the Russian economy will continue to receive money. In other words, European politicians can continue to make speeches worthy of Churchill himself. But these are all cheap slogans if we continue to finance Putin's war. And it is precisely the hot air that has brought us to this very situation. In fact, since the war broke out in Ukraine, dependence on Russia has actually increased. And I know what some of you are thinking. Let's make the sacrifice. Let's just stop buying gas from Russia. If necessary, we'll spend the rest of the winter without heating. But the truth is that we use natural gas for everything. Industry, agriculture, electricity production. So come on, to play the martyr and say that we can live without gas today is kind of more cheap slogans. And I think that by now, we're kind of all a bit fed up with cheap slogans, aren't we? So the real question that we are asking today is, could Europe really stop depending on Russian gas? And is there any alternative to the current European energy policy? Today, we're gonna answer all of these questions. But first, many of you have asked us if there is a way to help Ukraine in this war. And the truth is that there is. The National Bank of Ukraine is accepting donations from all over the world to support the resistance and the Ukrainian armed forces. This is not an advertising plug. Nobody is paying us to say this, and it is merely informative. If you're interested, you can find the link in the description below. But now, let's take a look at some history.
Pact with the devil.
I'm going to say it very clearly. Part of what is happening now in Ukraine is due to Germany's energy policy. I know what I just said is controversial, but the data is there. Up to the time of making this video, Germany has been blocking the shipment of armaments to Ukraine. Check this out.
Germany okays weapons for Ukraine in major shift on military aid. Until Saturday, Germany had a long-standing practice of blocking lethal weapons from being sent to conflict zones.
In any case, in any discussion about Russia, Germany is always the country closest to the Kremlin. And why, might you ask? Quite simply, at the end of the long road of cheap slogans is the most cynical realpolitik. Let me explain. Germany is the largest energy consumer in Europe. This makes sense if we take into account that it is the largest economy in the entire European Union. The cheap slogans, Germany does not want nuclear, nor does it want coal, nor does it want oil. And green energies are not insufficient. There is no way to store energy today. Yes, it is true there are experimental technologies for storing energy, but for the time being, they are still in the laboratory. That leaves gas. And that is why both Germany and Europe are consuming more gas than ever before. In 1990, they produced 40,000 gigawatts of power by gas. By 2020, they were producing more than 94,000 gigawatts. It is true that, in relative terms, gas represents a smaller percentage of the mix, but in absolute terms, Europeans are buying more and more and more gas, and Russia is their main supplier. Think of it this way. Politically speaking, Russian gas is the good, nice, and cheap energy option. Good because it pollutes less than coal. Nice because it provides energy whenever we need it. And cheap because it comes from Russian pipelines, which are nearby and have good prices. Does it mean that we've made a pact with the devil? Yes. But until now, who cared? We have seen demonstrations against climate change and nuclear energy, but who was demonstrating against Putin? Hardly anyone. Let's put it bluntly. Prior to February 2022, Putin and a war in Ukraine was something that only those of you who watch VisualPolitik and a handful of others worried about. No one in Germany was losing elections for having a close relationship with Putin. In fact, we've all seen Raul Gonzalez playing soccer for Schalke in a Gazprom jersey, and no one thought it was bad. And all of this explains why, instead of looking for other gas suppliers, Germany has been looking for ways to buy even more gas from Russia without it having to go through Ukraine. Unfair? Yes. But then again, how many of you have heard of Nordstrom 2? And that's how we get to February 2022. What happens now? Well, check this out.
A debt to the devil.
The first consequence of this war with Ukraine is that Nordstrom 2 has been paralyzed until further notice. This was not an easy decision for Germany, but really, there was no other choice. For the time being, Russia continues to sell gas to Europe via Ukraine. The question is, until when and under what conditions? Pay attention to what the Deputy Chairman of the Security Council of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, said on Twitter.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has issued an order to halt the process of certifying the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Well, welcome to the brave new world, where Europeans are very soon going to pay 2,000 euros for 1,000 cubic meters of natural gas. Dmitry Medvedev, Deputy Chairman of the Security Council of Russia.
The real question is no longer whether we want to continue to depend on Russia. The question is, how do we reduce that 40% of gas we buy from Russia, and how can we do it as soon as possible? At the moment, the United States has already sent 60 liquefied natural gas tankers with liquefied natural gas. Qatar had said it would be willing to sell some gas if Russia cuts off some supplies. And you're probably thinking, well, problem solved then. Well, not at all, really. Firstly, it's hard to imagine that the United States or Qatar could supply all the gas that comes from Russia. Liquefied natural gas is much more expensive than gas arriving by pipeline. If all of a sudden, all the big European industries had to pay for gas at Asian prices, we would be talking about a gigantic economic crisis. And the question is, what can be done? Do we go back to building nuclear reactors? I mean, it doesn't seem very feasible. It takes almost 10 years to build a nuclear reactor, not to mention the lack of political will. Do we expect that renewable energies can be stored cheaply? I mean, I've already told you about cheap slogans. Are we going to make decisions based on the promise that one day someone will discover a new technology that will change everything? And so, what are our real options? Well, check this out.
New devils to make pacts with.
We said at the beginning, the era of cheap slogans is over, so let's call a spade a spade. Europe has no choice but to make pacts with new devils. Think of it this way, it is better to depend on several devils than on just one. So the first devil in our story is the gentleman you see on screen. Meet Ilham Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan. I know, Azerbaijan is one of those countries you realize exists mostly thanks to the Eurovision Song Contest. And believe me, he is a savage, corrupt dictatorship, not without geopolitical problems. If you don't believe me, just ask the Armenians. And this is where the news story from the beginning of our video fits in.
Russian Azerbaijani presidents to meet in Moscow on Tuesday. This
meeting took place 2 days before the invasion of Ukraine. Both Putin and Aliyev declared eternal love, military cooperation, and understanding of all kinds. The question is Azerbaijan really Russia's best ally? Well, the truth is that no, it is not. First of all, they compete with Moscow for selling gas. But not only that, Azerbaijan's main supporter is Turkey, a NATO member since 1952 and a historical antagonist of Russia. Besides being famous for caviar, Azerbaijan is blessed with one of the largest natural gas fields in the world, the famous Shah Deniz fields in the middle of the Caspian Sea. What's more, as of 2020, Azerbaijan has been selling natural gas to Europe. Take a look at this map. Here you can see how gas travels from the Caspian Sea to southern Italy. Construction started in May 2016 and was completed in November 2020. In total, 4 years. At the time, this pipeline generated a lot of controversy. And yes, Russian propaganda was involved to the maximum in Italy. They even got the 5-Star Movement, the trending political party at the time, on their side, but nothing that transcended public opinion. In fact, we have all seen Thibaut Courtois winning the soccer league with his team Atletico de Madrid, wearing the shirt of Azerbaijan, the land of fire, and no one ever protested. Well, thanks to this pipeline, Europe can further diversify its supply today.
Italy and Azerbaijan plan to raise trans-Adriatic pipeline gas deliveries.
And at this point, you're probably thinking, what a move! Are we really going to replace one terrible dictator with another? Are we going to give up being dependent on Russia to become dependent on Azerbaijan? Well, no. Relax, because in the select club of dictators with natural resources, there is a new player. Someone no one expected. And believe me, I'm sure no one saw this coming. Meet Turkmenistan. This country doesn't even participate in Eurovision. If you're familiar with it, it's maybe because of a video we made on VisualPolitik that seemed more like a humorous monologue than anything else. In fact, it's a video that has a lot of views purely because it is so terrible that it is even funny. The dictator of this country is called Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow. The name's going to appear on the screen. He is also known by his oppressed people as Arkadag. Well, Mr. Arkadag is the comic version of Kim Jong-un. To give you an idea, he had a 68 foot, that's a 21 meter high gold statue built of himself riding a horse. Actually, the statue is made of bronze, but it is covered with 24 karat gold. If you think having gold statues of yourself is not enough, he also had one built of his dog. In addition, Arkadag also composes his own rap songs and give concerts to his people. This is not a joke, or, I'm sorry to say, an exaggeration. If it weren't for the fact that we were talking about one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, it would kind of look like an episode of South Park. However, Turkmenistan has the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world, and its only major buyer at the moment is China. For several years, they've been trying to build a pipeline to sell to India. This pipeline is called the TAPI. TAPI, which is an acronym for Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. That's right, Turkmenistan's economic future depended on a gas pipeline that was to pass through Afghanistan. As you can imagine, it is a pretty uncertain future right now. But I'm not saying it's going to be built. But as you can imagine, at the moment, building anything in Afghanistan is a very complicated task. In other words, Mr. Arkadag may be a dictator, but he has got natural gas and he is desperate to sell it. And that explains news stories like this.
Agreement between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan paves the way for Trans-Caspian Pipeline.
That's right. If you remember, in the video we made about Turkmenistan, #BringBackSimon, we already told you that this country had plenty of natural gas. But we took it for granted that this gas could never reach Europe. However, necessity is the mother of invention, and the solution is already on the table. All that is needed is to connect Turkmenistan's gas to the pipeline that already connects Azerbaijan to Italy, and voila, Europe will be connected to the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world. In addition to all this, there is another advantage Turkmenistan has. Check out this map. Do you see what I see? Exactly. Turkmenistan competes with Russia in the gas market, but it has no border with Russia. That is, it is probably a difficult country to invade. And you're probably thinking, is it really possible to start building gas extraction plants in Turkmenistan? Just think, we are talking about one of the most underdeveloped places in the world. What's more, it is a dictatorship where legal certainly is conspicuous by its absence. But let's be clear, if the political will is there, anything is possible. At this point, it is worth remembering that 100 years ago, Saudi Arabia was not much better off than Turkmenistan is today. Of course, this does not mean that Europe will stop buying gas from Russia, nor does it mean that getting new suppliers will solve all of its energy problems. But it does show that, with political will, it is possible to start reducing Russian dependence. And that's urgent. So the question is, will there really be political will this time? Will we really see Europe making a clear policy to stop depending on Russia? And do you all think this is a good idea? And more importantly, will we see Barcelona football team putting the face of Arkadag, their dear leader, on their shirts? You can leave me your answer in the comments below. As always, don't forget that here on VisualPolitik, we release new videos every week. So subscribe to this channel and hit the little bell button down there so you don't miss any of our updates. If you like this video, like it so we know. And I'll see you next time.